Welcome to Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Tonight's tale is not fiction. It's based on real events that unfolded at the infamous Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, a building haunted by decades of death, disappearance, and dread. Our story is told from the perspective of a former night shift clerk. He was working the front desk in early 2013 when a young woman named Elisa Lam checked in. What followed over the next few days would become one of the internet's most chilling mysteries, and perhaps something far more sinister. This is his account, and if it's true, Elisa Lam might not have been the only one the hotel refused to let go. You don't come to work at the Cecil Hotel for the glamour. No one does. It's not like other hotels in downtown Los Angeles. Hell, it's not even like other buildings. Half of it's been converted into permanent low-income housing, while the rest tries to pass itself off as a budget hotel under some bland rebranding. Stay on Main. But even with the new paint and cheap signage, the bones are still the same. They never moved the elevator shaft, never tore up the lobby tile, and they sure as hell didn't change the name people whispered under their breath when they walked past the front doors, the Cecil. I started the night shift in early 2013. The pay was crap, but it was steady and I didn't mind the hours. I'd bring a book, sit behind the chipped marble desk, and wait for the clock to run out. Most nights it was just me, a security guard who never left the back stairwell, and the occasional drunk stomping through the lobby looking for his keys. But you hear things. Doors slamming on floors that are supposed to be vacant, elevators that run by themselves, voices caught in the static of the front desk phone. Everyone who works here has a story. Mine starts with her. She came in on a Tuesday, cold outside, wind rattling the glass. She pushed through the revolving door just after 5 p.m., alone, small frame, pale, black hair tucked behind her ears, a red hoodie with white drawstrings that hung unevenly like they'd been yanked. Her backpack looked like it weighed more than she did. "Hi," she said, placing her hands on the counter. "I have a reservation. Elisa Lam." Her voice was soft but clipped. Canadian accent, I thought. I checked the computer. There it was. 5 nights, prepaid. I assigned her to 506, a quiet room on the 5th floor. Not much of a view, but the window faced an alley, so it wasn't as noisy as the ones over Main Street. As I handed her the key card, she hesitated. "Is the building safe?" Her eyes were searching mine, like she already knew the answer. "It's fine," I said. "Keep your door locked. Don't wander too much at night." She gave a half smile and nodded. Then she asked, "Does the room have a bathtub?" I blinked. "No, just a stand-up shower." She looked disappointed. It was subtle, like something in her had deflated. She thanked me and walked toward the elevators, head low, shoulders tight. I watched her on the camera feed. She stood inside the elevator and didn't press a button right away, just waited, like she expected it to move on its own. Eventually, she jabbed a few numbers, stepped into the corner, and disappeared from view. It was a strange first impression, but then again, a lot of people who stayed at the Cecil were strange. The next night I noticed she hadn't been down for anything. No questions, no complaints, no movement. Some guests are like that, quiet, keep to themselves. But something about her silence scratched at me. On the monitor, her room light flicked on and off at odd hours. 1:42 a.m. Then again at 3:06, then nothing. At 6:30 a.m., housekeeping stopped by the desk. It was Rosa, one of the senior maids. "Room 506 wouldn't let me in," she said. She answered through the door, told me to come back later. I nodded, about to brush it off, but Rosa continued. She said someone was in there with her. That caught me. Who? Rosa shook her head. Didn't say, but I didn't hear anyone. Just her voice. I logged the report, filed it under routine guest privacy. But it nagged at me. It wasn't just the odd request. It was how Rosa looked when she said it. She was pale, like she'd seen something she didn't want to admit. Later, that morning, I went to refill the vending machine on the second floor. When I came back, I passed the elevator. The doors were wide open, no one inside. But the overhead panel was blinking 5, over and over, like it couldn't forget. I leaned in, half expecting to hear a voice. Instead, I heard static. Back at the desk, I glanced at the security feed. Just for a moment, I thought I saw her, Elisa, standing in the hallway facing the camera. Her arms were at her sides. Her hoodie looked darker, wet maybe, but the footage blinked and she was gone. I told myself I was tired, hallucinating. But I made a note. 5th floor, 3:14 a.m. The Cecil didn't like being ignored, and Elisa Lam had just started talking to it. She started showing up more often, but never in person. By the second night, Elisa still hadn't come back down to the lobby. No requests, no complaints, no calls. Most guests stopped by at least once, forgot their keycard, needed towels, asked about food delivery. But not her. It's like she vanished the second that elevator door closed. At around 1:30 a.m., I was watching the monitors again. Not actively, just the usual half attention you give to 5 silent feeds on a dim lobby screen. But something caught my eye. The elevator feed was glitching, looping like a skipping DVD. I leaned forward. The timestamp read 1:26 a.m. Elisa was standing in the back corner of the elevator, same red hoodie, same backpack. But the way she moved, something was wrong. She kept pressing buttons. Not just one floor, all of them. Floor 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, then 10, over and over. Her fingers darted like she was trying to trip some hidden sequence. Then she stepped to the side, flattened against the panel, and stared toward the hallway like she expected someone to follow her in. No one did, but she didn't look relieved. She looked terrified. A few seconds passed. The doors didn't close. She peeked out, twice, then jumped back in like she'd seen something move. The elevator still hadn't budged, not an inch. The panel didn't light up. It was like the whole thing was frozen, waiting for something else. And then she stepped out. That's when her hands began to move, slowly at first, like she was feeling the air, then faster, jerky, hypnotic. Her arms floated up like a puppet's, fingers twisting in shapes I couldn't understand. It was like she was trying to communicate with someone I couldn't see, or something. She paced back and forth in front of the door. Then she disappeared from view entirely. Just like that. I sat there, frozen. I tried to rewind the feed, but it refused to load. Error. Corrupted segment. I scribbled the time down. 1:26 to 1:29 a.m. I called maintenance. Asked if the elevator had been acting up. They said no. Routine service. No issues on record. But that night, something felt different in the building. The air was heavier. Still. I watched the lobby lights flicker once, just a subtle pulse. But in a building like this, you notice every anomaly. Around 2:40 a.m., a guest came down from the 8th floor. Young guy from the UK. Shaky hands. "I think someone's on my floor," he said. "A girl. She's talking to the walls." "What do you mean?" I asked. "She's just standing there in the hallway whispering. I heard her say Don, and then something about water." "What room are you in?" he told me. 814. Same wing as Elisa's room. I checked the system. No other guests had been placed on that floor. When I asked if he could describe her, he hesitated. "Black hair, red hoodie," he said. "Why?" I looked up at the fifth floor feed. Nothing. Just the still frame of the hallway and an old vending machine humming in the dark. I thanked the guest and sent him back upstairs with a warning to keep his door locked. Then I made another note in the logbook, just like I always did when something felt off. I never called the police. Not yet. Not over strange behavior. But something about the way she moved, those arms, those fingers, reminded me of something I couldn't quite place. Like she was underwater and trying to find the surface. I slept terribly that morning. Even with the sun rising and the sounds of downtown returning, I couldn't shake it. Her face. The way she kept peering out of that elevator, like something was waiting just beyond the door. Something she didn't want to let in, or couldn't keep out. She didn't check out. That's what I kept coming back to. Elisa Lam was due to check out on the 1st of February. Room 506 was paid through that night, but she didn't return the key card, didn't stop by the desk. No call, no sign of her at all. By the second day, her room hadn't been accessed in over 36 hours. That's when management started getting nervous. Not enough to call the police yet, but enough to knock. Rosa, the maid, was the first one to open the door. "She's not there," she told me, her voice tight. "And it's not empty either." I raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "She left her stuff. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop. Was the bed slept in?" She nodded. "But it looks like someone got up in the middle of the night and didn't come back." I followed Rosa back upstairs. The room smelled stale. The window was locked. The chain on the door undone. The bed was a mess, sheets twisted like someone had been tossing and turning. Her laptop sat on the desk, still plugged in. A black notebook sat open beside it, pages covered in neat handwriting, half of them crossed out in frantic slashes. One page read, "He was here again, in the mirror. But he doesn't look like a man." I closed it. We filed the disappearance. Police came. They asked a few questions, took down a statement, then left with the notebook and her laptop. The official story: young woman, traveling alone, likely distressed, maybe wandered off. But if she wandered off, why were people still hearing her? That night, I got 3 complaints from different guests, all unrelated, all on different floors. A woman on the 7th said she heard knocking on her door around 3 a.m. Slow, methodical, like someone tapping with their fingernails. When she asked who it was, there was silence. Then the sound of bare feet walking away on the carpet. A man on the 4th swore he saw a woman standing at the end of the hallway in the middle of the night. She was just staring at me, he said. Didn't move, just stood there. Then she walked into the wall. When I checked the feed, nothing. And then came the water complaints. At first it was minor, low pressure, metallic taste. I figured it was an old pipe issue, which was typical. But then a guest, a woman from the UK, came to the desk and said, "The water smells like something died in it." I almost laughed. But then she added, "And it's black at first, then clear." I brushed my teeth before I realized. She gagged. Tears welled up in her eyes. I called maintenance. Miguel was the only one on call that week. He groaned but agreed to check the rooftop tanks in the morning. Said it was probably a dead rat or something. I watched him go up around 9 a.m., lugging a flashlight and toolkit through the stairwell. He was up there longer than usual, then longer still. I buzzed his walkie. "Miguel, you good?" No answer. Then, click. Static, a long pause, and finally his voice. "Call the cops," he whispered. "Now." When he came back down, he didn't say a word. His hands were shaking. He sat on the bench in the lobby and stared at the floor while the police arrived. They went up, opened the water tank, and there she was, Elisa Lam, floating just beneath the surface, naked, her skin pale blue, eyes open, no bruises, no signs of assault. Her clothes were found nearby, folded. The lid of the tank was somehow shut from the outside. The official report called it a tragic accident. Maybe a manic episode, maybe suicide. But here's what I never said in my report. The night before they found her, the lobby phone rang at exactly 3:33 a.m. When I answered, all I heard was water, splashing, gurgling. Then, "Why didn't you help me?" I slammed the receiver down, looked around the empty lobby. The monitor feeds were all dead static, and for a moment I thought I saw her reflection in the glass of the front doors. But there was no one outside. She was gone. But the Cecil wasn't done with her. The police left that afternoon, took her body, her belongings, her file from the front desk, tried to take the weight of it all with them, but they didn't, not even close. The moment the tank was drained and sealed, it was like something inside the hotel turned inward. Like it curled up and began whispering to itself. I felt it the second I stepped through the lobby that evening. The air was different, heavier and cold, despite the broken AC. Everyone kept moving like nothing had happened. The manager wore a forced smile and told us not to speak to reporters. The other employees shared nervous glances, whispered behind closed doors. Rosa, the maid who'd found her room, quit 2 days later. She didn't even collect her last paycheck. Said she dreamed of Elisa drowning, not in water, but in air. Miguel, the maintenance guy who found the body, stopped coming to work altogether. I heard he started sleeping with the lights on and wouldn't drink from any tap, not even his own. But me, I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe because deep down I already knew the truth, that whatever had taken Elisa Lam hadn't left. That night I checked the camera feeds out of habit. I told myself I wasn't looking for her. But of course I was. I stared at the elevator monitor first. Nothing. Then the 5th floor hallway, and there she was, just standing there. Not grainy like before, clear. She wore the same red hoodie. The strings dangled like wet ropes and her hair hung over her face. She stood outside her room staring directly into the camera, unmoving. Like she'd been waiting. I blinked. Gone. I rewound the footage. Error, corrupted file. Feed reset to the hour before. But I know what I saw. Around 2:10 a.m. the lobby phone rang again. I hesitated this time, then picked up. Static, then faint breathing. "Is this?" I started, but I stopped cold. The voice on the line was soft, familiar and wrong. He said he would let me go. Then a low splash. The line went dead. I stepped back, shaken. The receiver hung from my fingers. That's when I noticed something impossible. A damp footprint on the tile behind the desk. Small, bare, leading toward the elevator. I followed them with my eyes, heart hammering. They trailed across the marble floor, then vanished. I sat back down, tried to breathe, and that's when the building came alive. Lights flickered, not just the lobby, every floor. My monitor feeds exploded into white noise. The elevator doors opened on their own. A gust of cold air swept through the front desk, carrying the faintest scent. Chlorine, copper, and something else. Decay. When the light steadied, I saw it. On the lobby wall, across from the elevator, "Still here," written in moisture, dripping slowly down the wallpaper. I rushed toward it, hand trembling. But by the time I reached it, the letters were fading. like the steam on a mirror after a hot shower. But I knew what I'd seen. Later, just before dawn, I went to the rooftop door. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or guilt. I had the master key. I unlocked it, stepped into the cold. The sky was still dark, but the lights of LA flickered far below like a distant fire. I looked at the tanks, all 4 of them sealed, padlocked. And standing at the edge of the roof, near the ledge, was a figure. She was facing away from me. "Elisa?" I whispered. The figure didn't move. I stepped closer, just a few feet now. I reached out and then she was gone. No sound, no gust of wind, no step away, just vanished, like mist. I stood alone on that roof, listening to the hum of the city and the slow drip of water from the railing. And for the first time since I started working there, I was afraid. Because the Cecil was more than haunted. It was hungry. And it had learned the sound of my name. I quit the Cecil 3 weeks after they found Elisa Lam. But some nights, I still work there. I dream the desk phone is ringing, that I can't lift my feet, that the water in the lobby fountain is turning black. When I finally left, nobody asked questions. Management wanted it all to disappear. Bury it under new branding, new paint, new tenants who didn't care. The official story stayed neat. A young woman, mentally unstable, climbed into a sealed tank and drowned. But I knew better. And so did the guests. In the weeks that followed, the complaints never stopped. The water, they said, still had an aftertaste, still came out dark in the morning, still carried a smell that reminded them of rust and mold, and something else they couldn't describe. Some said it smelled sweet, like rotting fruit. Others said it tasted like pennies. And then came the nightmares. A guest from San Diego said she woke up choking, lungs full of water, though her bed was dry. A man from Japan bolted down to the lobby at 4 a.m., crying, insisting there was a woman sitting on his bathroom counter with her legs in the sink, just staring into the mirror. She didn't speak, he said, but she was soaked, dripping, and her eyes were too wide. I stopped documenting those complaints. What was the point? I didn't tell them what I saw in the mirror one night just before I left. It was after hours, after my replacement didn't show up. I was in the staff restroom, splashing water on my face, trying to stay awake. The overhead light was flickering again, and I remember looking up into the mirror. And she was standing behind me, Elisa, soaked to the skin, red hoodie sagging with water. Her mouth hung open like she wanted to speak, but had forgotten how. I turned around fast. No one was there. But the floor was wet, and the mirror still held her reflection. For just a second longer. That was the last straw. I handed in my keys and walked out without collecting my final check. Thought that was the end of it. But the thing about the Cecil is, it doesn't let you go. A month ago, in my new apartment across town, I heard my shower turn on in the middle of the night. I live alone. When I opened the door, steam rolled out. I stepped inside, heart pounding. Drawn in the condensation on the mirror were the words, "Why didn't you help me?" And written beneath that, "Still in the water." I moved the next day. It didn't matter. The phone rings sometimes, always at 3:33 a.m. There's never anyone on the line, just the sound of slow dripping. So I leave the tap running now just in case, because if I turn it off, I might hear her again. Elisa Lam checked out of the Cecil Hotel, but part of her never left. And if you ever drink the water there, you might carry a piece of her too. Thank you for joining us tonight on Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. The story of Elisa Lam continues to disturb millions, but for those who lived through it, those who worked behind the front desk, answered the phones and watched the monitors. Her presence never left. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales rooted in reality, filled with mystery, tragedy, and the unknown, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a night. Until next time, sleep with the lights on. And if the water ever tastes funny, don't ask why.